RV Engineer here today, and today I'm going to be tackling a pretty big project on a nice early spring day here before hopefully we can get our first camping trip of the year. I'm really hoping that with all the stuff going on with the COVID situation that the campground that we're wanting to go to for Memorial Day is open, and of course that's not as important as everybody else staying safe, but I think a lot of people like me and my family have been isolated for about 7 weeks now based on the states that we're in. We could use a little trip and a little bit of adventure, so to speak. So over the winter, I'd been really eyeing the different types of Maxx fans, and I'd been looking at a lot of different options on improving the ventilation fans. The particular camper that I'm in, it comes with 4 roof vent fans, one of which is actually decent up there. That's the Maxx fan, but it does not have the rain shield. It does have the automatic closing if it starts to rain, but it doesn't have this nice cover on it so that you could use it whenever you wanted, whether it was raining or not. The rest of the fans are the standard 14-inch, very small, very junky fans. Initially, I was looking at potentially just buying a cover, but especially for the automatic kind like that up there, the cover doesn't fit perfectly, and then the motor is just basically stroking till it essentially gives an overload, and then it stops trying to open up anymore. And that doesn't really seem like the best for the motor. So that's when I started to look at these where the cover is built in, and as this thing opens up, the whole cover rises up with it. It's also more aerodynamic. It comes with black or white tops. I was more interested in the white, but I'll be honest, I'm not sponsored or anything, so it came down to what was the cheapest, and it turned out that the white was cheaper. I specifically went with the 7000 model series, which comes with the remote control and the auto open feature. And the reason for the auto open feature is the first room that I want to try this in is the one where I'm only of average height and there's no way that I can open the bathroom fan in the back bathroom. And that's our primary use bathroom. So the auto open feature for me in that area was critical. Depending on how well I like this after using it for a couple trips, I'll decide what to do for the other bathrooms. But it does come with the nice remote control here. You can do temperature settings, that sort of stuff. I'll show all the features once I've got it all wired and hooked up and that sort of stuff. But in general, you can even with the lid closed kind of use it as a ceiling fan. So right off the bat, after I took it out of the box, one thing that I did notice is these clips that are on here aren't all exactly evenly pushed down. So that'll be one of the first things that I'm fixing, because of course you want a good sealing surface all the way around. And I'll be talking more later in the videos about how I'm trying to really get this thing sealed up. So now we'll pause and we'll go look in the bathroom at the application. So here we are in the back bathroom again. This is our primary usage bathroom, and you can see I'm not the tallest guy in the entire world, but I essentially have no chance of being able to operate this bathroom fan to actually vent it out with having to get a stool. And also I've got 3 little kids, so if they're wanting to use the bathroom, they have no way of opening this up and down. And plus, with it being potentially used at night, I would really prefer that it have the rain protection on it so that we don't end up with anything. So step 1 is going to start with removing the initial bezel right here. So we'll get our tools and get started on that, and we'll kind of go through the process step by step. So in this shot, you can see I've removed the outer bezel. It's just held in place by 4 set screws. And I've pulled the wire harness out to where I can see where just the easy black and white wires connect into the power of the RV. So I'm going to cut the power from the battery, clip those 2 wires, and then we'll be switching to the roof. So a couple things before going up on the roof of your camper is first, know whether you have a walkable roof on your camper. I am certain, because that is a feature that Grand Design advertises, that this is a walkable roof. The second thing to keep in mind is these are my favorite pair of all around the house boots right here, but they have metal rivets, and your roof in all likelihood is rubber. So you definitely want to switch to some shoes that do not have metal rivets, because we're going to be on our hands and knees for quite a while up there. So here we are on the roof, and this is really where you want to do a quick sanity check. Is this actually the vent that you're trying to replace or not? Because like I say, there are, on this particular model, 4 total vents. There's one for the front bathroom. There's the slightly nicer model for the kitchen that does auto open and close in the rain, which as you can see has no dedicated rain cover. This is the back bathroom one, and then we have one more in the very back of the camper over the kids' bedroom. This is the one that I want to replace, and this is really where the boring part starts, because there is no, from what I have found, easy way to remove this material. It's a lot of work in terms of peeling and cutting and peeling and cutting, and of course having to be extremely careful to not cut the rubber of your roof. So I'm not going to do one of those time-lapse videos or anything like that. I'm just going to start working on this, and you'll see me in a couple hours as I get this whole thing peeled all the way back. So some tips and tricks along the way. I'm using this sharpened nylon stick here to kind of help me work the material up. In the automotive industry, this is what we call a juicy stick. I actually work for a Japanese company, and only 10 years after using one of these did I learn that the word juicy actually comes from nylon, the Japanese word for nylon. So it's just a nylon stick, but it allows you to take apart interior garnishes and that sort of stuff, but it works really well against this. And my daughter, actually, who's up here helping me, had a pretty good idea. Of course, we don't want to cut the rubber of the roof at all, but one thing that she noticed was if I did the score line and made sure that I was very much on the metal side, then it peels up in a much easier strip. I'm not going to be able to get every bit of this off of the rubber roof, and I never expected to, because I'm going to end up using some butyl tape to cover this entire gap right here when I do the reinstall, but it's making it go a lot quicker. So a couple tips along the way. So what we've done is we've removed all of the screws all the way around here, and also cut this back a whole lot. But there's also a layer of this stuff underneath, so it's not like you're just going to be able to lift it up. So again, using this nylon stick right here, because you don't want to rip your roof all the way away, you need to gently work this way under and get that lower level of glue separated also, really slow all the way around. Otherwise, you're going to end up separating your roof all the way around here. So you want to be sure and break all these little bonds here so that we can lift this thing out. It looks like once you can finally get it fully lifted up, and you can see that we're actually, now that we've got this out, that's about half the battle. And we're going to have to go back through and try and clean this up as best we can without cutting the roof. So it's taken quite a while, but I've managed to try and get basically as much of this down as I can get without actually starting to cut into the roof, because of course you're never going to get all of this off. So I've tried to make sure that I've got really clean lines around here so that when I put down the tape that it has a nice surface to adhere to. And of course you want to do a sanity check and put in the new insert and make sure that you're getting a good bite down all the way around. After that, we'll talk about how we're going to get this thing attached. So we've been up here for about an hour and 15 minutes doing nothing but scraping and cutting. And I honestly, you really need some type of hard plastic tool like this that has a decent point to be able to remove the material. And then we've been working very carefully with razor blades as well. And I've tried to get this nice fine finish all the way across here. The official instructions are to then set this in, trace a line, and fill the inner portion of that line with plenty of sealant. I am electing to do this a little differently. I've got this butyl tape right here that I'm going to apply as a double layer all the way around here, and then I'm going to end up using this EternaBond. Again, I paid full price for this right off of Amazon. I'm not sponsored or anything like that, but I got this EternaBond real wide tape right here, and I hear this stuff basically once it's on, it is on. And you can see that it's going to have an overlap to this entire flange, and then it's going to give me a good 2 inches of clearance all the way around. And then I honestly don't have to worry about the maintenance and that sort of stuff. You can say, Gus, you don't have everything completely off there. It's totally fine. This EternaBond stuff will stick to anything. All they really care about is that you have a clean surface like this to stick it to. And then after that, some people apply a little bit of this Dicor sealant, that type of stuff, to the edges. I'm initially not going to do that. I'm just going to kind of monitor how it holds up. Just going to kind of see, and maybe I'll end up doing that as I do my inspections. So that's the game plan for now. Pass this butyl tape running all the way around here. And the reason is I wanted to definitely make sure that I had a good margin all the way around. Having just spent hours peeling this stuff up, it feels very similar to what they had applied in here, although I'm definitely on. I'd rather have that safety factor of this EternaBond tape on top. So I feel pretty good about this setup. So the key point when this thing goes in is once it's on, it's on. And I didn't squish this down, I just basically packed it in place because I wanted to use my weight as I set it in. Clips right here to the sides of your RV, to the left and right, not front to back. Because like I said, once I kind of set this in and start applying pressure, the last thing I want to do is ever scrape this stuff off again. So I'm really going to work my way around here several times to really kind of wet this stuff out here, and then I'm going to go through and set the screws. So I've gone all the way across and shot these screws in, and as I did, I got just a little bit of bleed through of that butyl tape that I had put on, which was exactly what I wanted to give me confidence that it's really wetting itself out all the way around. So one thing I decided to go with is these are the screws that come with it, pretty standard button head style, versus these are the ones with a lot more aggressive double lead into them, and they're also a tapered head. And because I knew that I was going to be applying this butyl tape, I actually decided to reuse these screws so that the head would not stick up as much and it would be easier to wet the tape out around everything. So that's one thing where I've deviated from the official instructions. But actually I'm pretty pleased with the clean look of it. So far I've been really pleased with this, sorry, I forget what it's called here, this EternaBond tape right here. It cuts super easy, and then you just have to use a little bit of an X-Acto blade to get it started. And then you can peel this backer off, and you can see I've done this front section right here, and it wets out really nice. And I mean, it's got a seal on there from what I've read. Basically, I'm not getting this back up. I'm basically just cleaning it and applying another layer if I ever needed to cut it out or anything like that. I decided to do side to side and then front to back strips, just thinking about where water would want to naturally pool and trying to allow for that to kind of run down that way. And like I say, I'm overlapping across the screw heads, across where I've cut that down as good as it can be, and I've still got probably a good 2-inch margin all the way around here to help me get this sealing surface. So here it is with the EternaBond tape applied all the way around and wetted out. I gotta say, I really like the clean look of it. As I mentioned before, some people still apply a little Dicor here to the edges, that sort of thing. I'm going to hold off on that and see how it holds up. I really don't think that it's necessary. And honestly, I think it would kind of take away from the clean look and just make it harder to clean in the future. Next step, we actually get to pop the unit in. So one of the instructions says that you want to make sure that the vent is fully open before you try and install it. So mine is the power motor kind, so I'm just kind of giving this a slow turn, and kind of you can hear the motor going. It doesn't take a whole lot of turns. On the non-motorized one, it says to be sure and pull the knob out first to allow it to open. Of course, you want the vent end to the rear camper. You don't want to create a big wind dam. You want to make sure you do not trap the wire as you set it into place, just like so. And it should seal right up against that gasket right there. And then we've got 4 screws, 2 on each side, to set this thing into place. And then we're hopefully done on the roof. So you want to be sure and actually look at these screws. Hopefully you didn't make this mistake before you started installing this if you're using the screws that came with it, because there are shorter and longer ones. The shorter screw is for attaching to here. The multiple longer ones were if you wanted to use those to attach to the roof, as opposed to the ones that I reused from the unit that was originally on there. But something you definitely want to pay attention to, so that's why it's always good to watch a video before you start any project. So one thing you'll have to look for is these holes don't line up exactly perfectly, and that's because it's basically wanting to compress. You need to compress it down into the gasket. So again, that's where it's maybe a little helpful to have a little tool, and you kind of got to get an initial bite of the bit of the screw in, and then it'll draw it into place. So here's what the unit looks like fully installed. Now keep in mind this is the fully open position that I had to do to get the unit installed in the first place. So with this, we're going to be heading inside back to the bathroom to get the wiring done. I gotta be honest, it feels pretty good to no longer be on the roof. That was a little rough on the knees. Probably one more thing I should have mentioned up there is that if your roof is not clean, you definitely need to clean it before using that EternaBond tape. Of course, where we cut all the butyl back, or the Dicor or whatever material was up there, that created a nice bonding surface. But if your roof itself was dirty, you need to clean that ahead of time. Of course, there's all kinds of different things about what kind of cleaner is safe to use on your particular type of roof. I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to say that in general, it's easier to use just a light sponge and basic soap and water to get most of the cleaning you need. If you're actually trying to clean the Dicor itself, they recommend some different harsher cleaners, but you got to be careful to not get that on your roof. And you definitely don't want to use any cleaner with silicone in it, because the silicone will prevent the EternaBond from sealing. So now into here, when I got the power cut off, so that's why we're a little bit in the dark. When I snipped the original unit, I left a little bit of the original wires still in the terminators here, because that way I wouldn't have to remember. So on my particular unit, white to white and black to the red and white wire. Now I do like that the kit came with these nice crimp male and female units right here, you know, that can mate. So I'm going to cut these wires right here and crimp these spades on so that I can put this together, and then we're going to fire up the power and see if it works. So you can see we've turned our power back on. I had connected the black to the red, the positive, and then the white to white for the negative. Now, of course, this bathroom had a switch, so nothing's going to happen until I flip this switch on right here. And you can see that, oh, it knew that it was open, and it has decided to automatically close itself. And now we can hit it on, and it's going to open up. Kick that fan on. That's 50% setting, and I can tell you that I can definitely feel a breeze. I never felt anything from the fan that was in here before. Let's see if we can bump it up here. This has got a bunch of different settings. You know, you can set the temperature on it. You can increase the fan speed. There's 100% fan speed right there. Definitely moving some air, can definitely feel it. Of course, it's very windy outside too, so it's struggling against that, but this is actually doing something, unlike the previous fan that we had in here. Last step is to tuck this wire back up into this little shelf right here and put the finish trim bezel on. So all RVs have sloped roofs of some kind. So what they recommend is that you measure right here. So in this case, I'm going to say this is 3.75 inches. And then I'm going to add a 1/2 inch onto that. So that means that for that corner on this box, I'm going to measure to 4 1/4, and that's where I'm going to make my little dot. And I'm going to do that for all 4 corners, and then draw a line to connect all those so that I can capture the slope of the roof. And then eventually, once I've got that cut, then when this garnish goes up in here, it'll fit nice flush and tight up there. I'd really hoped that the garnish on the other one would fit, but unfortunately it has a slightly different radius around these edges, so I unfortunately have to recut this. So I don't have a plastic saw on me today, but as you can see is where I've traced the outline as I'm kind of going from here 4 1/4 down to 3 inches for my particular setup. And all I'm doing is taking this X-Acto knife here and just doing a nice deep score down that line. And this plastic is really thin, so you can then just take some shears and just cut up towards it, and then you'll be able to just break it off in a little section. It'll come off like that. You might have to trim it up just a little bit, but no one's going to see this edge, so I'm really not that concerned with how pretty it looks. So that's how I'm snapping it off. So you can see where I've done my score and kind of break off, and I just had to clean up a little bit in the corners, but honestly that worked pretty well, and versus having to buy a whole new tool, I really like that method. So now we'll see if it fits up in here. So of course you got to make sure you're not pinching your wire or anything like that, and this nests up. Now I left the 1/2 inch versus the 1/4 inch recommended, and I gotta say I'm pretty pleased with the way that 1/2 inch fits up into there. You cannot see jagged edges at all. No one knows exactly how you cut it, but it looks nice up there. Only thing left to do, add in 4 screws, and this project is over. And with that, tightening that up, this is how our bezel piece goes back around, and this project comes to a close. It takes around 4.5 hours. A lot of that is done on the roof, trying to clean up how careful you want to be cleaning up the die core or whatever material you've got on your roof. If it was a brand new installation, of course, it could go a lot quicker. And I did this myself with my 10-year-old daughter, who I'd really like to thank for all her help for the past 4.5 hours. But it's definitely a doable project. Not one, it's 75 degrees here today, and on the roof in the sun, it can get hot. So I would recommend doing this on a nice weather day, but I don't know that I could tackle this on a 90-degree day. As for future projects, I'm going to kind of use this one on a couple trips. Hopefully that Memorial Day trip that I was talking about, kind of see how we like it, how effective we feel it is in terms of working with the other fans to help with not use the AC system before I decide, am I going to install the exact same one over the other two, or maybe in those locations where they're not near as high, maybe I'll opt for the manual version as opposed to the automatic. I'll kind of see. I'll let you all know. Of course, leave me some comments down below. Any questions, anything you feel like I left out. Really appreciate you watching. Hope this helps.